The knock sounded like a mistake. Jun Seok's hand moved before his mind registered the choice. Drawer open, Glock 19 gripped cold against his palm, breath controlled and shallow. Nobody knocked on his door. Not the building manager. Not delivery drivers who learned fast to leave packages downstairs. Not the neighbors who pretended the 12th floor only had 11 apartments. He crossed the living room in silence, dress shoes soundless against hardwood, city lights bleeding through floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. The security camera feed glowed on his phone screen. 12 floors up, snowstorm raging outside, and someone stood at his door holding something wrapped in foil. A woman. Black. Young. Cheap winter coat, dusted white. Hair pulled back tight. She shifted her weight like cold had already crept through her boots. His finger rested along the trigger guard. Threats didn't knock. They kicked. But assumptions killed people faster than bullets. Before we continue, besties, please like and subscribe. It's the simplest way to support this channel and help these stories keep coming. We drop new emotionally gripping stories every day just for you. And don't forget to comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. I'd love to see how far this story of love and destiny has reached. Jun Seok opened the door halfway. The hallway's fluorescent hum spilled in. Her eyes went wide, not with recognition, but with the sudden understanding that some doors shouldn't be knocked on. Yes? His voice came out flat, neutral. The tone that made grown men choose their next words carefully. She swallowed. The foil package crinkled against her chest. I'm sorry to bother you. I work at the diner on Jefferson. We had extra food tonight and I saw your light on and I thought... She stopped, started again. I didn't want it to go to waste. Jun Seok studied her face. No calculation behind the words, no angle, just exhaustion wearing the shape of kindness. No. He started to close the door. Okay. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. She turned too fast. Her shoulder hit the door frame. The package almost slipped. That's when he saw her hands shaking. Not from cold, from something older. He recognized the tremor. People who worked too hard, slept too little, and still chose to care when caring made no sense. His mother's hands had shaken like that. Wait. She stopped mid-step, breath fogging the air. He opened the door completely. Come in, it's cold. Her hesitation lasted 3 seconds. Then she crossed the threshold into a space that felt more like a crime scene than a home. Empty walls, untouched furniture. Darkness interrupted only by distant city glow. She set the package on the kitchen counter carefully, like it mattered. Like he mattered. You don't have to eat it now, she said softly. Just whenever. Jun Seok nodded once. Thank you. The words felt foreign in his mouth. He couldn't remember the last time he'd spoken them and meant it. She left without asking his name. Without asking anything. The door clicked shut. The silence returned. But something had shifted. Some small crack in the architecture of his isolation. Jun Seok unwrapped the foil. Meatloaf. Mashed potatoes. Green beans. Still warm. He ate standing at the counter, juncture lights painting shadows across the walls. Halfway through, his vision blurred. He set the fork down slowly, pressed his palms flat against granite. His chest tightened the way it did when memories ambushed him. His mother in a hospital hallway, alone, dying while he closed a deal he couldn't walk away from. A tear hit the countertop, then another. For the first time in years, Kang Jun Seok cried over a meal someone had brought him. And across the city, Nya Rowan rode the bus home, staring at her reflection in the dark window, wondering why the man in apartment 1207 looked like he was drowning on dry land. What neither of them knew was that kindness, once offered, creates debts that can't be unpaid, and some debts get collected in blood. Nia's fingers ached from gripping the bus pole too tight. She watched Chicago blur past, streetlights smeared gold through freezing rain, storefronts shuttered for the night, a city that never stopped moving but rarely noticed who got left behind. Her reflection stared back from the window glass, dark eyes circled with the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. She shouldn't have knocked on that door. The thought circled her mind like a vulture. She'd felt it the moment he opened up. Danger compressed into stillness. Power wrapped in restraint. Men like him didn't live on the 12th floor of a building with broken elevators by accident. They lived there because nobody asked questions, but she'd seen something else too. Loneliness that looked like her own. The bus lurched to a stop. Nia stepped into cold that bit through her coat immediately, breath clouding as she walked the 3 blocks to her apartment. The neighborhood greeted her with familiar sounds, distant sirens, someone's bass rattling windows, an argument echoing from an upper floor. Home was a studio above a laundromat that hummed 24 hours a day. The heat barely worked. The lock stuck. But the rent stayed low enough that she could almost make it every month if she picked up extra shifts and didn't eat much. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her boots, and stood in the middle of the room trying to remember why she'd done what she'd done. The diner manager had handed her the leftover food at closing, meatloaf that got overcooked, sides that couldn't be sold tomorrow. He'd muttered something about waste, but Nia had seen the numbers. The diner threw away more food in a week than she ate in a month. She'd almost taken it home. Then she'd remembered the man in the window. She'd seen him 3 weeks ago on her way to the bus stop, 12 floors up, backlit by a single lamp, sitting alone at a table. No TV glow, no movement, just sitting. She'd noticed because most people filled their spaces with noise. He seemed to fill his with absence. The next week, same thing, same window, same stillness. By the 3rd week, she'd started wondering what kind of person spent every night like that. Tonight, holding warm food she couldn't afford to waste, she'd made a choice that defied logic. She'd crossed the street, entered a building that smelled like old carpet and regret, and climbed 12 flights because the elevator was broken. At his door, she'd almost turned back, but her mother's voice had whispered through her memory. "Baby, being kind costs nothing, and sometimes it costs everything. You do it anyway." Her mother had died 2 winters ago. Stroke. Nia had been working a double shift. By the time she got to the hospital, the doctor said there was nothing left to save. The guilt lived in her chest like a second heartbeat, always there, always reminding her she'd chosen work over presence. She couldn't fix that, but maybe she could keep someone else from eating alone on a holiday. Nia moved to her window now, pressing her forehead against cold glass. From here, she could just barely see his building across the intersection, 12 floors up, 1 light still burning. She watched until it went dark. Then she whispered into the empty room, "Please be okay." What she didn't know was that across the city, in an office that overlooked Lake Michigan, 3 men were reviewing security footage from apartment 1207's hallway. The youngest one paused the video on Nia's face, clear, unmistakable, frozen mid-knock. "Who is she?" the oldest man asked, voice rough as gravel. "Don't know yet. But she visited Kang tonight, brought him food." Silence stretched like a held breath. Then, "Find out everything. If she's a problem, we handle it quietly." The video played forward, Nia entering, leaving 8 minutes later, disappearing into the elevator. The youngest man smiled, not kindly. Should be easy. She looks breakable." The knock came at 11:47 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and this time Jun Seok was expecting it. He'd been standing at the window for 20 minutes, watching snow fall in silence, fireworks already starting to crack open the sky downtown. The city celebrated, he observed. That was the agreement he'd made with himself years ago. Participation was for people who believed tomorrow could be different. But when he saw her crossing the street below, paper bag clutched against her chest, hood pulled up against the wind, something tightened in his chest that felt dangerously close to hope. He opened the door before she finished knocking. Nia froze, hand still raised, surprise bright in her eyes. "Oh, hi. I wasn't sure if—" "Come in." He stepped aside. "You'll freeze out here." She entered more confidently this time, though her gaze still swept the apartment like she was cataloging exits. Smart. He respected that. This time the food was chilly. Cornbread wrapped in cloth to keep it warm. She set everything on the counter with the same careful attention. "I figured you might be alone again," she said quietly. "Holidays are hard." Jun Seok stared at her. Most people didn't state truths like that. They danced around them, dressed them up in politeness. But she'd just laid it bare. "They are," he admitted. "For you too?" She nodded. "My mom died 2 years ago. New Year's was her favorite. She used to say every midnight was a chance to start over." Her smile flickered. I don't think she believed it. But she said it anyway. "My mother died on Christmas Eve." The words came out before he could stop them. "I was late. I've been late ever since." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of quiet that happens when two people recognize the same wound wearing different faces. "I'm Naya," she said finally. "Naya Rowan." "Jun Seok." "Kang Jun Seok." They stood 3 feet apart, city noise muted by thick glass, time stretching between seconds. Then Naya noticed his wrist, the scar tissue that disappeared under his sleeve, raised and deliberate. She didn't stare, but he saw her seeing it. "Occupational hazard," he said flatly. "What do you do?" "Logistics." The lie came smooth as breathing. "Import coordination." She didn't believe him. He watched the calculation happen behind her eyes. Expensive apartment, empty space, scars that told violent stories. But instead of pushing, she just nodded. "Must be stressful work." Sometimes people don't want things coordinated. Outside, fireworks exploded in gold and red. Midnight approached. The city prepared to pretend this year would be different from the last. Nia glanced at the window. "Do you want company? When it hits 12? Every instinct told him to say no. Company meant questions. Questions meant lies. Lies meant more distance between who he was and who he wanted to be. But he was tired of distance. Yes. They moved to the window, stood side by side, watched Chicago celebrate while they held their grief quietly between them. When midnight struck, Nia whispered, "Happy New Year, Jun Seok." "Happy New Year, Naya." She stayed another hour. They talked about small things, weather, traffic, her job at the diner, his fabricated stories about logistics work. Nothing deep. But depth wasn't built in confessions. It was built in time spent not running away. When she finally left, she paused at the door. "Can I come back? Not just holidays, just sometimes?" Jun Seok's throat tightened. "I'd like that." After she left, he ate the chili slowly, tasting care in every spoonful. He didn't see the car parked across the street. Didn't notice the camera lens pointed at his window. Didn't know that someone was documenting every moment Naya Rowan spent in his presence. Because in his world, threats announce themselves with violence. But the worst threats always started with patience. The diner smelled like grease and disappointment at 6 in the morning. Nia tied her apron with practiced efficiency, muscle memory guiding her hands while her mind wandered to the man 12 floors up who'd said her name like it meant something. 3 weeks had passed since New Year's. She'd visited 4 more times. Each visit lasted longer. Each conversation cut deeper. She was starting to care about Kang Jun Seok. That terrified her. "Table 7 needs refills." Brent Halverson's voice cut through her thoughts, sharp entitled, too close. The diner's owner had a habit of standing just inside personal space, using proximity like a weapon. Nia grabbed the coffee pot without responding. Engagement only encouraged him, but today he followed her between tables, voice dropping to something he probably thought sounded intimate. "You been real distracted lately. Something on your mind? Or someone?" She poured coffee with steady hands. "Just tired. Maybe you need a break. I could give you the weekend off. We could talk about it. Somewhere private." Every woman who'd ever worked at Jefferson Diner knew what somewhere private meant. 2 girls had quit in the last year. Another stopped showing up and wouldn't return calls. Nia turned to face him directly, voice low and clear. "I need the hours, not the conversation." Brent's smile thinned. His eyes went cold. "That's real unfortunate, Nia. Because I need employees who appreciate their opportunities. I appreciate having a job. I don't appreciate being uncomfortable while doing it." The temperature in the room shifted. Brent stepped closer, close enough she could smell cigarettes and cologne mixed into something sour. "You want uncomfortable?" His voice barely carried past the space between them. "Keep running that mouth. See how many hours you get next week." He walked away before she could respond. Her hands shook as she finished her rounds. Fear tasted like copper. She'd felt this before, the specific powerlessness of needing money more than dignity, knowing that men like Brent understood exactly which pressure points crushed hardest. By closing time, her hours for the next week had been cut in half. She left through the back door, eyes burning with tears she refused to let fall in public. The bus ride home felt longer than usual. Every stoplight stretched, every block dragged. She almost didn't go to Jun Seok's apartment, but grief and fear made terrible companions, and she needed to be somewhere that felt safe, even if she couldn't explain why his empty apartment provided that. He opened the door before she knocked again. His expression shifted immediately, reading her face the way someone trained to assess threats would. "What happened?" "Nothing. Just a long day." "You're lying." He stepped aside. "Come in." Nia entered, and for the first time, she didn't set food on his counter. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself, trying to hold together something that felt close to breaking. Jun Seok moved to the kitchen, poured water, handed her the glass. He didn't ask again, just waited. Finally, she spoke. "My boss cut my hours. Because I wouldn't—" She stopped, started over. "Because I told him no." "No to what?" "The kind of thing women always have to say no to." Jun Seok's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes went very still, very cold, the kind of cold that preceded violence. "His name? It doesn't matter." "His name, Nia." She looked up at him then, really looked, and saw what she'd been avoiding since that first night. This man wasn't someone who coordinated imports. He was someone who solved problems permanently. "Please don't," she whispered. "I need this job. If something happens to him, nothing will happen that traces back to you." "Jun Seok. What's his name?" The question hung between them like a loaded gun. Nia's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her breath caught. A text from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. Her apartment, building. Taken today. Taken recently. Her hands started shaking again. This time she couldn't stop them. Jun Seok took the phone gently, looked at the image. His jaw tightened. "Who is your boss?" he asked one more time. Voice quiet. "Absolute." And Nia realized that sometimes protection required surrender. "Brent Halverson. He owns Jefferson Diner on 5th. Jun Seok nodded once, set her phone down, looked at her with something that might have been tenderness, if tenderness could coexist with fury. "Stay here tonight. Don't go home. I can't just... Nya. He waited until she met his eyes. Trust me. She wanted to argue, wanted to say she could handle this herself, wanted to believe that involving him wouldn't make everything worse, but the photo on her phone said otherwise. Okay, she whispered. What she didn't know was that across town, Brent Halverson was closing up the diner, whistling off-key, completely unaware that his name had just been entered into a ledger that didn't forgive debts. And in the shadows outside Jefferson Diner, a car waited with its lights off, engine running, patience refined into purpose. The brick sailed through Nya's apartment window at 2:34 a.m., 3 nights after she'd stayed at Jun Seok's place. Glass exploded inward, showering her bed where she'd been lying awake, anxiety keeping sleep at arm's length. She rolled off the mattress on instinct, heart slamming against her ribs, bare feet hitting cold floor as she scrambled toward the far wall. The brick landed on her pillow. A note was rubber banded around it. Her hands shook so badly she could barely unwrap it. The message was printed. Blocky letters that looked like they'd been traced through a template. Difficult women get hurt. Last warning. Nia's vision blurred. Her breath came too fast, too shallow. She pressed her back against the wall and slid down until she sat on the floor, glass glittering across her sheets in the streetlight coming through the broken window. This was more than Brent cutting hours. This was the promise of violence. She grabbed her phone with trembling fingers, pulled up Jun Seok's number. Her thumb hovered over the call button. If she involved him, people would get hurt. She knew that with the certainty of someone who'd finally seen past the careful lies he told about logistics and import coordination. But if she didn't involve him, she might be the one who got hurt. She called. He answered on the first ring. Nya? Someone threw a brick through my window. Her voice cracked. There was a note. I'm coming. Don't touch anything. Don't open the door for anyone but me. The line went dead. Jun Seok arrived 17 minutes later, faster than possible if he'd followed traffic laws. Nya opened the door and he stepped inside, gaze sweeping the room with the precision of someone trained to assess crime scenes. He moved to the brick, read the note without touching it. His expression went blank in the way that meant emotion was being actively suppressed. Pack a bag, he said quietly. You're not staying here. I can't just leave. My lease, your lease doesn't matter if you're dead. The words hit like a slap. Nya stared at him, and for the first time, she understood the gap between being protected and being safe. Protection was as temporary. Safety required permanent solutions. What are you going to do? She whispered. Jun Seok looked at her then, and she saw something in his eyes she'd only glimpsed before, the specific emptiness of someone who'd made peace with violence as a tool. What I should have done 3 days ago. Please don't, Nya. He crossed the space between them, stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Listen to me carefully. Men like Brent Halverson don't stop. They escalate. That brick? It's not a warning. It's a preview. Next time he comes inside. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't want blood on my hands. It won't be on your hands, his voice gentled. It'll be on mine, where it's always been. She wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be another way. But standing in her apartment with glass on her bed and a threat wrapped around a brick, she couldn't find the words. Instead, she whispered, "Who are you really?" Jun Seok didn't lie this time. Someone who solves problems that police can't touch. The truth hung between them. Heavy, absolute, terrifying. Nya's next question came out barely louder than breathing. How many people have you hurt? More than I can remember, less than I deserve to. She should have run. Every survival instinct screamed at her to grab her things and disappear. But fear and exhaustion had worn her down to something raw and honest. "I'm scared," she admitted. "I know." He lifted his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed the tears from her cheek with surprising gentleness. "Pack your bag. I'll make a call." While she threw clothes into a duffel, Jun Seok stepped into the hallway. She heard his voice, low, controlled, speaking Korean too fast for her to catch individual words, but she understood the tone. He was calling in a favor that would cost someone everything. When she emerged with her bag, he ended the call and looked at her with something that might have been regret. "There's something you need to understand," he said quietly. "After tonight, things will change. Brent Halverson will disappear. The diner will close. Questions will be asked, and you need to tell the police, if they ask, that you haven't seen him in days." Nya's stomach twisted. "You're going to kill him." "I'm going to make sure he never hurts anyone again." Jun Seok held her gaze. "Can you live with that?" The question wasn't rhetorical. It was a choice. Nya thought about the other women who'd quit, the ones who'd stopped showing up. The photo of her apartment building, the brick on her bed, the note promising hurt. She thought about her mother saying kindness costs everything. She hadn't known it would cost this much. "Yes," she whispered. "I can live with it." Jun Seok nodded once. Then he reached out and squeezed her hand briefly, the kind of touch that carried more weight than words. "Go wait in my car. Silver Lexus, 2 blocks east. Doors unlocked. I'll be down in 5 minutes." "Where are you going?" He smiled without humor. "To remove a problem." Nya walked to the car on legs that barely held her weight. She climbed into the passenger seat, closed the door, and sat in darkness that smelled like leather and danger. Through the windshield, she watched the street, empty except for a few parked cars, snow beginning to fall again, the city sleeping through violence it would never witness. 5 minutes became 10, then 15. When Jun Seok finally emerged from the building, his hands were clean. His clothes were undisturbed. Nothing about him suggested anything had happened, but Nya knew. She knew the way prey knows when a predator has fed. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, pulled into traffic without speaking. 2 miles later, her voice broke the silence. "Is it done?" "It's done." Did he suffer?" Jun Seok glanced at her. "Do you want the truth?" She didn't answer. He drove through snow that was already covering their tracks, and neither of them spoke again until they reached his building. But as they rode the elevator up to the 12th floor, Nya felt the weight of what she'd agreed to settling into her bones, heavy, permanent, irreversible. She'd asked a monster to protect her, and monsters always collected their debts. What she didn't know yet was that across the city, in an office overlooking Lake Michigan, 3 men were watching live footage of Jun Seok's car pulling into his building's garage. And the oldest one, the one who'd built an empire on knowing which threads to pull, smiled slowly and said, "Now we know what he cares about." The youngest man leaned forward. "Do we move on her?" "Not yet. Let him think he's protected her. Let him feel safe. And then?" The old man's smile widened. "Then we remind Kang Jun Seok that in our world, nothing stays protected for long." Brent Halverson disappeared on a Tuesday, and nobody looked hard enough to find him. The diner stayed closed for 3 days. Yellow police tape stretched across the entrance. Officers asked questions nobody could answer. Nya told them what Jun Seok had coached her to say. She hadn't seen Brent since her last shift, hadn't heard from him, didn't know anything about threats or broken windows. The detective had studied her face for a long time. "You seem nervous, Ms. Rowan." "I'm always nervous around police." She'd met his eyes steadily. "That's what happens when you grow up black in this city." He'd nodded and moved on to the next employee. What the police didn't know, what they'd never find, was that Brent Halverson had stopped existing in any meaningful way. No body, no trail, just an absence that would eventually be filed under missing persons and forgotten beneath newer tragedies. Nya learned this sitting in Jun Seok's apartment 5 days after the brick came through her window. She'd been staying with him since that night, sleeping on his couch, moving through his space like a ghost haunting someone else's life. The news played on his television, a brief mention of the missing diner owner, speculation about debts or affairs, nothing that suggested violence. The reporter's voice was bored. The city had bigger problems than one disappeared man. Jun Seok stood at the window, back to her, shoulders tight with tension that never quite released. "They won't find him," he said quietly. Naya's hands clenched in her lap. "Because there's nothing to find." "Yes." The word hung between them like smoke. Naya stared at the man who'd fed her, protected her, killed for her. She tried to feel horror, tried to access the moral clarity that should have sent her running. Instead, she felt safe, and that terrified her more than anything. "How did you—" She stopped, started again. "I don't actually want to know." "Good." Jun Seok turned to face her. "The less you know, the safer you are." "Safe." Naya laughed without humor. "Is that what this is?" "Yes. I'm living with a murderer." "You're living with someone who won't let you be hurt." She stood abruptly, pacing the length of his living room. Her reflection moved across the dark windows, small, trapped, complicit. "Do you understand what you've done? Not just to him. To me. I can't unknow this. I know. I can't go back to being someone who doesn't," her voice cracked, "someone who doesn't have blood on her hands." Jun Seok crossed the room slowly, stopping a few feet away, close enough to touch, far enough to give her space. "You don't have blood on your hands. You asked me not to do anything. I did it anyway. That's on me. You did it for me. I did it because men like Brent Halverson don't stop until someone stops them." Naya wrapped her arms around herself. She was shaking again, the tremor that had become constant since the brick, since the note, since she'd watched Jun Seok leave her apartment with murder in his eyes. "I should hate you," she whispered. "You should. I should be scared of you. You should be. But I'm not." She looked up at him, tears streaming. "I'm grateful, and that makes me just as bad as you are." Jun Seok's expression shifted, pain flickering across features usually locked in control. "You're nothing like me. Then why do I feel like I am?" He had no answer for that. Nya moved to the couch, sank down, buried her face in her hands. Sobs came hard and jagged, grief for the version of herself who could still pretend the world ran on justice instead of violence. Jun Seok stayed where he was, giving her space to break without an audience. When she finally looked up, eyes red and swollen, she said, "I need to know something." "Okay. Did he suffer?" The question she'd avoided before, the one that mattered now. Jun Seok held her gaze. "Do you want the truth?" "Yes." "No," it was fast. Relief and shame flooded through her in equal measure. She nodded slowly. "Thank you. For that. For making it quick." "I'm not a sadist, Naya. I'm just—" "What? What are you?" He sat down on the chair across from her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked tired. Human. Breakable. "I'm someone who learned early that the world doesn't protect people like my mother, or people like you. So I became someone who could. By becoming what they fear. Yes. And you've done this before. Many times." "Yes." Nya wiped her eyes. "Who are you? Really? Not logistics. Not import coordination. Who is Kang Jun Seok?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he told her the truth she'd already guessed. I work for a Korean syndicate. Enforcement, collections, removals. I've done it for 12 years. I'm very good at it. And until I met you, I never questioned whether I should be. The confession settled between them like falling snow. Nia should have run, should have called the police, should have done anything except what she did next. She reached across the space between them and took his hand. I can't do this, she said softly. I can't be the reason you keep killing people. You're not. Yes, I am, and you know it. She squeezed his fingers. You did this because you care about me, which means every time someone threatens me, you'll do it again. And again. Until I'm safe and you're what I've always been. No, she shook her head. You're more than that, I see it. The man who cries over warm food, who sits alone on holidays because he doesn't think he deserves joy. That's who you really are. That man killed for you last week. I know. Tears fell again, and I'll carry that forever, but I won't let you carry more because of me. Jun Seok's jaw tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying I care about you. Too much. And caring about you means wanting you to be more than someone who solves problems with violence. I don't know how to be anything else. Then learn. She pulled her hand back. Because I can't love someone who'll keep killing to protect me. I won't be the excuse. I won't be the reason. The word love hung between them. Unexpected. Devastating. True. Jun Seok stared at her like she'd just shot him. You can't love me, he said hoarsely. Too late. Nya, but I also can't stay if this is who you'll keep being. She stood, moved toward the guest room where her things were packed. I'm going to stay with a friend for a while. Give us both space to figure out what this is. It's not safe. You made sure it was safe. Brent's gone. The threat's gone. She paused in the doorway. Now I need to figure out if I can live with what that cost. Left the next morning. Jun Seok watched from the window as she crossed the street, bag over her shoulder, disappearing into the city that had tried to break her. And for the first time in 12 years, Kang Jun Seok realized that some problems couldn't be solved with violence. Some problems required becoming a different man entirely. 3 days later, he made a call that would end everything he'd built. But what he didn't know was that his bosses had been waiting for exactly this moment, when he finally cared enough about something to become weak. The news article appeared in Naya's search results at 2 a.m., 3 weeks after she'd left Jun Seok's apartment. She'd been lying in her friend Kendra's spare room, unable to sleep, unable to stop thinking about the man who'd killed for her. She'd typed his name into Google for the 100th time, knowing she shouldn't, doing it anyway. This time, something new appeared. Federal investigation targets, Korean organized crime network, she clicked before her better judgment could stop her. The article didn't name Jun Seok directly, but the details were precise enough. Enforcement operations between Chicago and New Jersey, a network responsible for dozens of disappearances over the past decade. Naya's vision blurred, her stomach twisted. Dozens. Not one. Not Brent. Dozens. She read the article 3 times, each pass making her sicker. Money laundering, debt collection, contract killings. The FBI had been building a case for years. Witnesses were cooperating. Arrests were imminent. She set her phone down with shaking hands. The man she'd fallen in love with wasn't just dangerous. He was a monster who'd learned to smile at her between atrocities. Naya barely made it to the bathroom before she threw up. When morning came, she called in sick to the new job she'd found at a coffee shop downtown. Then she sat on Kendra's couch and stared at nothing while her mind replayed every moment. Warm food, gentle touches, tears over meatloaf. All of it built on a foundation of violence she'd been too naive to see. You okay? Kendra emerged from her bedroom, concern evident in her voice. No. Naya's voice sounded hollow. I'm really not. She told Kendra everything. Watching her friend's expression shift from shock to horror to something close to pity made Naya feel even smaller. "Girl, you need to talk to someone," Kendra said carefully. "Like a therapist, or maybe the police." "I can't go to the police." "Why not?" Because she'd lied to them already. Because she'd held Jun Seok's hand after he'd committed murder. Because some part of her, the part that still remembered feeling safe, didn't want him arrested. She was complicit. Not legally, maybe, but morally, absolutely. "I just can't," Naya whispered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Naya?" Jun Seok's voice came through rough, strained. "Don't hang up, please." She should have. Instead, she pressed the phone tighter to her ear. "I saw the article," she said. Silence. Then, "I'm sorry you had to learn that way. How many people have you killed, Jun Seok?" "More than I can count." The answer hit like a physical blow. She'd asked before, but hearing it now, after reading about investigations and disappeared bodies, made it real in a way it hadn't been. "Why did you tell me you were different?" Her voice broke. "Why did you let me believe, because with you, I wanted to be different?" He paused. "I am different. When I'm with you. That's not enough." "I know." Nia closed her eyes. Tears slid down her cheeks. "I can't be your redemption. I can't be the good thing that makes all the bad things okay. That's not how this works. I know that too." "Then what do you want from me?" Another pause. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "I want you to know I'm fixing it." "You can't fix this. You've killed people. That doesn't get fixed." "You're right. But I can stop being the person who does it." He took a breath. "I'm walking away, Naya." From all of it, fear spiked through her. "They'll kill you. Maybe. But I'd rather die trying to be someone worthy of you than live knowing I'm not. Don't. Don't do this because of me. I can't carry that weight too. I'm doing it because you showed me what I gave up when I chose this life." His voice steadied. "Warmth, connection, humanity. I want those things back. Even if you never speak to me again, I want to be someone who deserves them." Nya pressed her hand over her mouth, muffling a sob. "I'm meeting with them tonight," Jun Seok continued. "I'm offering my resignation. Everything I have, in exchange for what? For you to be safe, forever, permanently, no matter what happens to me." Terror gripped her. "Jun Seok, don't. It's already done. The meeting's set. I wanted you to know why. This isn't what I asked for. I know, but it's what I need to do." The line went quiet except for their breathing, his steady, hers ragged with tears. "I don't forgive you," Naya said finally. "For any of it. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I don't want you to die. That's more than I hoped for." She wanted to beg him not to go, wanted to tell him to run instead, wanted to scream that choosing death for redemption was just another form of violence. But before she could speak, he said softly, "Thank you, Naya, for the warm food, for seeing me, for caring when you shouldn't have." Then the line went dead. Naya sat frozen, phone pressed to her ear, listening to silence. Kendra touched her shoulder gently. "What happened?" "He's going to get himself killed." Naya looked up, vision blurred. "He's walking into, God, I don't even know what, but he's doing it for me." "Then stop him." "I can't. I don't even know where." Her phone buzzed again. A text from the same unknown number. "If something happens to me, know this. Loving you was the first good thing I did in 12 years. Nia stared at the message until the words burned into her vision. Then she did the only thing she could. She waited. The office overlooked Lake Michigan, floor-to-ceiling windows framing water that looked black under night sky. Jun Seok stood in front of three men who'd built an empire on fear, and he felt nothing but calm. The kind of calm that came after accepting consequences, after choosing honor over survival. Chairman Park Dong-soon sat behind a mahogany desk, 70 years old, with eyes that had witnessed every form of human cruelty without flinching. To his right, Kim Min-ho, the enforcer who'd trained Jun Seok, who'd taught him that mercy was weakness. To his left, young Lee Sang-woo, ambitious and hungry, already calculating how to fill the power vacuum Jun Seok was about to create. "Sit," Chairman Park said. Jun Seok remained standing. "I prefer not to." Min-ho's hand moved toward his waistband. Muscle memory. Threat. Assessment. "Let him stand," the chairman said. "He's earned that much." Silence stretched. Outside, city lights flickered like dying stars. "You requested this meeting," Chairman Park continued, very formally, very respectfully. "Hey, after 12 years of perfect service. So I'll extend you courtesy." He leaned forward. "What brings Kang Jun Seok to my office asking for release?" "I'm resigning from my position." Jun Seok kept his voice level. "Effective immediately. I'm offering everything I've accumulated. Assets, properties, cash reserves, everything, in exchange for clean separation." Min-ho laughed sharply. "There's no clean separation from this life. You know that better than anyone. I do. Which is why I'm also offering something else. What could you possibly have that we want more than your continued service?" Chairman Park's expression never changed. Silence. Loyalty. "And my word that I will never speak about operations, names, or methods to any law enforcement entity." "Your word." Sang-woo's voice dripped mockery. "That's supposed to be enough?" Jun Seok turned his gaze to the younger man. "My word has been enough for 12 years. Every job completed, every problem solved, no police involvement, no evidence trails. I've given you efficiency and discretion. I'm offering the same in retirement." Retirement. Chairman Park said the word like it was foreign. "Men don't retire from this organization. They serve until they're no longer useful. Then they're removed." "I understand the tradition. I'm requesting an exception." "Why?" The chairman's eyes narrowed. "After 12 years of excellence, what changed?" Jun Seok had prepared several answers. All of them lies. But standing here, facing death, he chose truth. "I met someone who made me remember I used to be human." The silence that followed was absolute. Then Chairman Park laughed, a dry rattling sound like bones in a box. "A woman. After everything I taught you about attachments, you fell for a woman." "Yes. The black girl." Sang-woo pulled out his phone, swiped through images. "Nya Rowan, 26. Works at a coffee shop now. Lives with a friend in Bridgeport. We've been watching her since she started visiting you." Cold rage flooded through Jun Seok. He kept it locked behind his expression. "She has nothing to do with my work. She doesn't know anything about the organization. She's innocent." "No one who knows you is innocent," Min-ho said. "That's the rule." "Then I'm adding a condition to my resignation." Jun Seok looked directly at Chairman Park. "Nya Rowan is never to be touched. Not as leverage, not as punishment, not ever. She disappears from your surveillance, from your radar, from your world entirely." "And if we refuse," Chairman Park asked mildly, "then you'll have to kill me right now, because I won't let you hurt her. Ever." The threat hung in the air. Absolute, immovable. Sang-woo stood, hand moving toward his weapon. "You don't make demands here." "Sit down," Chairman Park said quietly. Sang-woo hesitated, then obeyed. The chairman studied Jun Seok for a long moment. "You're willing to die for her?" "Yes, but not willing to kill for her anymore." "I already did. That's how I know it's wrong." Min-ho shook his head. "You've gone soft, weak. This is what happens when we allow sentiment. Maybe. Jun Seok's voice didn't waver. But I'm still standing here offering you peace. Clean books, no investigations, no testimony, no revenge, just release. Chairman Park leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. For a man who'd ordered hundreds of deaths, he looked almost contemplative. Your loyalty has been valuable, he said finally. Your discretion, impressive. Your efficiency, unmatched. He paused. But you understand what you're asking is impossible. The precedent alone, I'm not asking for precedent. I'm asking for exception. One time. For one person who served you perfectly for 12 years. And if we grant this exception, others will ask. Let them ask. You can say no to them. The logic was sound. They all knew it. Chairman Park was quiet for 3 full minutes. Outside, clouds moved across the moon, throwing shadows across the room. Finally, he spoke. I'll grant your request, with conditions. Hope and terror mixed in Jun Seok's chest. First, you surrender everything. All assets, all accounts, all properties. You walk away with nothing but clothes and a clean identity. Agreed. Second, you leave Chicago. Tonight. You don't contact anyone from your previous life, including the girl. Jun Seok's jaw tightened. She doesn't, especially the girl. Because the moment you contact her, she becomes leverage again, and my protection only extends if you honor complete separation. The words cut deeper than any blade. No goodbye, no explanation, just absence. How long? Jun Seok asked hoarsely. Forever. Or until I'm dead. Whichever comes first. Chairman Park smiled without warmth. That's the cost of love in our world, Kang Jun Seok. You can have her safety or her presence. Not both. Jun Seok closed his eyes. Thought of Nia's smile, her kindness, the way she'd looked at him like he was worth saving. She deserved better than a ghost, but she deserved to live more. I accept, he whispered. Good. Chairman Park nodded to Minho. Process him out. New identity. Cash stipend. And make sure he understands. If he ever returns, if he ever contacts her, the deal is void. Minho stood, gestured toward the door. Jun Seok followed, each step feeling like death. At the door, Chairman Park's voice stopped him. For what it's worth, Kang. She must be extraordinary for you to give up everything. Jun Seok didn't turn around. She is. Then honor the sacrifice. Don't waste it. That night, Kang Jun Seok ceased to exist. His accounts were drained, his apartment cleared, his identity buried under paperwork that would never surface. He was given a new name, a bus, ticket, and $5,000 cash. By dawn, he was gone. And across the city, Nia Rowan woke to silence that felt like mourning, not knowing yet that the man who'd loved her had chosen her safety over his own life. Not knowing that love sometimes means becoming a ghost someone can never find. The prison visiting room smelled like industrial cleaner and defeat. Nia sat at a metal table, hands folded in her lap, heart hammering against her ribs. 6 months had passed since Jun Seok disappeared. 6 months of silence. 6 months of believing he was either dead or gone forever. Then the letter had arrived. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside, a single piece of paper with handwriting she recognized. Federal Correctional Institution, Terre Haute. Inmate, FN 84729. Saturday visiting hours. That was all. She'd stared at it for 3 days before making the decision. Now she sat in a room full of broken families and shattered futures, waiting for a man who'd killed for her to walk through the door. The buzzer sounded. Inmates filed in, orange jumpsuits identical, faces ranging from hardened to hollow. Then she saw him. Jun Seok looked thinner, older. His hair had grown out. A scar she didn't recognize marked his left temple. but his eyes, when they found hers across the room, still held that same careful intensity. He sat down slowly, phone receiver already in hand. She picked up hers with shaking fingers. They stared at each other through bulletproof glass. "Hi," he said finally, voice rough from disuse. "You're alive." Tears blurred her vision immediately. "Yes. I thought they killed you." "They considered it. I convinced them not to." Nya wiped her eyes with her free hand. "By going to prison?" "By making a deal." He looked down at the table between them. "I testified. Names, locations, operations, everything except what would hurt you. Then I pleaded guilty to enough charges to satisfy justice without revealing organizational structure." "How long?" 15 years. Eligible for parole in 7 if I cooperate fully." 7 years. The number crushed her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you? Because you were right." He met her eyes again. "I couldn't keep being that person. I couldn't keep killing. And I couldn't let you carry the weight of what I'd done. So you destroyed your entire life instead." "I destroyed the life I shouldn't have been living." He paused. "I'm building a different one now. Slowly. Through therapy and education programs and learning what it means to face consequences." Nya pressed her palm against the glass. "I don't know what to feel." "Feel whatever you need to feel." His voice gentled. "You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness. Not loyalty. Not even this visit." "Then why did you write me?" "Because I needed you to know I'm not who I was. I'm trying to be better. Not for you, though you're why I started, but for me. Because I deserve to live like a human instead of a weapon." The honesty in his words broke something open in her chest. "I'm still angry," she said. "You should be. I'm angry that you killed for me. I'm angry that you made choices I can't undo. I'm angry that caring about you means carrying all of this. I know. But I'm also..." Her voice cracked. "I'm also grateful you're alive. And that makes me feel crazy. Because I should hate you. I should have never come here." Jun Seok's eyes glistened. "You can hate me and still be glad I'm alive. Those things can be true at the same time." "Can they?" "I think so. I hope so." He leaned closer to the glass. "Nya, listen to me. You taught me something I didn't believe was possible." "What?" "That dignity isn't about being untouched by darkness. It's about choosing light anyway." He smiled slightly. "You said that to me once. Remember?" She didn't remember saying it, but she remembered thinking it. "You're using my own words against me," she said through tears. "Because they were true. And because they saved my life." They sat in silence for a moment, just breathing in sync through phone lines and distance. Finally, Naya asked the question that had haunted her for months. "Do you regret meeting me?" Jun Seok didn't hesitate. "Never. Not once. Not even knowing how it ends. This doesn't feel like an ending. It's not. It's a pause." He pressed his hand against the glass where hers rested. "Maybe in 7 years, when I'm out, you'll have moved on. Built a life with someone who deserves you. And that would be right. That would be good. Or maybe, if you're still willing, we could try again. As different people. Better people." Nya's heart clenched. "I don't know if I can wait 7 years." "I'm not asking you to wait. I'm asking you to live. Fully. Without guilt." His voice steadied. "And if our paths cross again someday, and you still want to know the man I've become, I'll be here, working on being worthy of that chance." The guard announced 5 minutes remaining. Nya wiped her eyes. "I can't promise anything. I don't need promises. Just write me sometimes. Let me know you're okay. I can do that." That's enough. That's more than enough. The buzzer sounded. Visiting time was over. Jun Seok stood slowly, phone still pressed to his ear. Take care of yourself, Nia Rowan. You too, Jun Seok. He smiled, small, real, tinged with sadness and hope. Then he walked away, back through the door that led to cells and consequences and the slow work of becoming someone new. Nia sat alone for a long time after, staring at the empty chair across from her. She didn't know if she'd come back, didn't know if love could survive this much distance and damage. But for the first time in months, she felt something other than grief. She felt possibility. And as she drove home through Indiana fields turning gold with autumn, she whispered to herself, 7 years. Maybe. We'll see. What she didn't know was that waiting in her mailbox was a letter, plain envelope, no return address. Inside, 3 words in careful handwriting, "You are safe," and at the bottom, a date, Christmas Eve, 7 years forward, an invitation, or a promise, or both. The apartment smelled like garlic and rosemary, scents that hadn't existed here 7 years ago. Jun Seok stirred the pot on the stove, checking seasoning with the careful attention of someone who'd learned patience through necessity. Outside, snow fell in thick curtains, coating Seattle streets in white. He'd moved here after release, far from Chicago, far from memories that still cut when he wasn't careful. Witness protection had given him a new name. David Song. Simple. Forgettable. Safe. But alone in his kitchen on Christmas Eve, he was still Jun Seok. Just a version who cooked his own meals, worked an honest job delivering groceries, and attended therapy every Thursday without fail. 7 years. He'd counted every day. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. His heart stopped, then raced. He wiped his hands on a towel, crossed the small living room, checked the peephole from habit. A woman stood in the hallway, snowflakes melting into her hair. She held a wrapped package, foil-covered, familiar shape. Nia. Jun Seok opened the door, and time collapsed. She looked different, older, confident in ways she hadn't been before. Her coat was nicer, her smile more certain. But her eyes, those hadn't changed. "Hi," she said softly. "You came." His voice barely worked. "I said maybe. It's been 7 years." She held out the package. "I figured you might be alone on a holiday. Didn't want your food to go to waste." The callback hit him like joy and grief mixed together. "Come in," he managed. "Please." She stepped inside, and something in the universe shifted back into alignment. His apartment was small but warm, lived in without being cluttered, evidence of a life built deliberately. Books on shelves, photos of Seattle landmarks, a guitar leaning against the wall. "You play?" She nodded toward it. "Learning. Badly." He smiled nervously. "Would you like— I made dinner. Actual dinner. From scratch. It's not poisonous. Probably. I'd love that." They moved to the small kitchen table. He served stew and bread while she unwrapped the foil package she'd brought. Meatloaf, just like 7 years ago. "I had them overcook it at the diner," she said. "For tradition." "You still work at diners?" "No, I'm a social worker now. Got my degree 3 years ago. I work with domestic violence survivors." She met his eyes. Helping people who need protection but don't know how to ask for it. Jun Seok's throat tightened. That's perfect. You're perfect for that." "I learned from experience." She took a bite of his stew. Her eyebrows rose. "This is actually good." "Don't sound so surprised. You used to eat standing over the sink like a criminal." "I was a criminal." The word sat between them, true, past tense, impossible to erase. "You," Nia paused. "Are you okay? Really?" "Most days, yes." He set his spoon down carefully. "Some days I still wake up expecting consequences. but I'm learning to believe I'm allowed to just live. My therapist says that's progress. It is. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Snow continued falling outside. The city hummed its winter song. Finally, Naya asked what she'd been holding back. Why Seattle? Witness protection chose it. Said the Korean community here is different. Less organized crime, more families. I could blend in. He smiled slightly. Also, it rains a lot. I like rain. Feels like the city is washing itself clean every day. Poetic. I've had a lot of time to think. Nia studied his face, reading the changes, the scars, the 7 years of work it took to become someone new. I got your letters. I know. You never wrote back. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still angry. Part of me was healing. Part of me was... She stopped. What? Missing you. She said it simply. Even though I knew I shouldn't. Even though what we had was built on violence and trauma. I still missed you. Jun Seok reached across the table slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he covered her hand with his. I missed you every single day, he said quietly. But I'm glad you took the time. Glad you built your life without me. You deserve that. I did build a life. A good one. She turned her hand over, threading her fingers through his. But there was always this space, this question. What if? What if what? What if the man who knocked on my door back then, the one who cried over meatloaf, what if he was real? What if he wasn't just a moment of humanity inside a monster? I'm real, Jun Seok said. I'm here, and I'm trying every day to be someone worthy of the second chance you gave me. I didn't give you a second chance. You earned it yourself. By going to prison. By choosing to change. She squeezed his hand. That's what matters? Not the punishment. The choice. They finished dinner slowly, talking about small things, her work, his deliveries, Seattle weather versus Chicago cold, building new memories on top of old pain. When the plates were cleared, Naya stood, moved to the window. Snow had covered everything now. The city glowed white and clean. I can't promise this will work, she said without turning. There's too much history, too much hurt. I don't know if love can survive what we survived. I know, but I'm willing to try. If you are. Jun Seok crossed to stand beside her, close but not touching. Present but not demanding. I've spent 7 years learning to be patient, he said. I can be patient with this too. She turned to face him finally. Tears glistening but not falling. Then let's start slow. Dinner once a week, schma conversations. Getting to know who we became when we weren't together. I'd like that. And maybe, if it works, we figure out what love looks like when it's built on honesty instead of trauma. I'd like that even more. She smiled then, real, warm, cautious but hopeful. And in that moment, Kang Jun Seok understood something he'd never believed possible. Redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about building a future worthy of the person you hurt most. Merry Christmas, Jun Seok, Nia whispered. Merry Christmas, Nia. Outside, the city kept snowing. Inside, 2 people who'd survived darkness found their way toward light. And somewhere in the distance, watching from a car with darkened windows, a man lowered his camera and made a call to Chicago. He's with her again, he said quietly. On the other end, Chairman Park's voice came through rough with age, but sharp with warning. Let them have tonight. But remind Kang that deals have terms, and terms have consequences. The line went dead. The man in the car watched the lit window for another moment. Then he drove away into snow that covered everything, including the truth that some debts never fully get paid and some threats never fully disappear. They just wait. If this story moved you, don't just watch, stay. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the powerful stories we bring to you every single day. These are stories that inspire, stories that challenge, stories that remind us what it means to be human. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Your words inspire others. Your presence matters. And remember, love isn't about perfect people making perfect choices. It's about broken people choosing to be better. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep choosing light.